didn't initially start by a love of sailing. We had actually never been on a sailboat before our plan, and 10 years ago we decided that we wanted to travel the world and spend a lot of time traveling and experiencing different areas. Part of that plan came together because we could live on the sailboat for a reasonable amount of money and continue to travel long term.
That's right. We kind of figured out that it was, I think, the most cost-effective way to see the world, because the boat is like, it's your airplane flight and it's your hotel, and you could just be out there at a very casual pace. And, so that got us really excited. And so after that, that's when we started to get into sailing and learning things. Because I brought it up first with Michelle, and I still remember the look she gave me when I said, hey, I think we should go sail the world. And she kind of looked at me like I was crazy. Like
what, on a cruise ship?
Yeah.
And he said, no, I think we should live aboard a sailboat and go explore the world via the sailboat. And I was like, it had never crossed my mind that could be an option. And so I think the biggest takeaway for people watching is push your limits, take yourself out of your comfort zone, think about things that aren't normal, and go and do them, because why not?
We went on our very first learning to sail trip, with a skipper. We were on a very small 1970s wooden monohull, and Michelle and I were in the V berth, and we had almost no mattress. We were just sleeping on these wooden planks. And I remember this was our very first time on a boat, and Michelle was crying to sleep that night. I can't do this, Chris. And I had to be don't worry, I promise when we get a boat, it'll be much nicer than this.
But you do have to be on those less comfortable boats to appreciate a real comfortable boat. Because honestly, yes, those first sailing education boats are not glamorous. They're set up to teach you to sail. And so, yes, there are no proper cushions. The boat we were on, it was the 1970s, and it might have been 2 inches in the 70s, but it was down to half an inch of a cushion in our bedroom. It wasn't set up for comfort, but it was set up to teach us to sail, and that was really important. But understanding what luxury on a sailboat was key, right? Yeah. So understanding what we wanted, understanding what we didn't want was very important. Yeah, so zero sailing experience. We are from Calgary, so there is no oceans. We're completely landlocked. We have a tiny sailing club, but it's little lake darts. So we went to Vancouver to learn to sail. So we flew out to Vancouver to get on a proper sailboat. The very first one was basic crew, and then we started doing dry land training at home. So we would do navigation and the VHF radio, first aid, all those things that we could do being landlocked. And then we took 4 courses? 5?
I think it was 5.
5 on board for a week sailing courses, progressively more complicated.
Yeah, we started by going through a lot of the Sail Canada stuff because we're Canadian, but we knew that we were going to be spending a lot of time in Europe and the Mediterranean, and then venturing elsewhere internationally. And so while we started with the Sail Canada stuff, we chartered a catamaran down in the Grenadines. We did some catamaran training specifically, and then we went to the United States, which is where we went through some of the RYA material, and we did the ICC, the International Certificate of Competency. So it was kind of like Canada gave us our foundation, but then we knew it was going to be important to have some international credentials as well, just to match our travel plans.
Just for everybody watching the video, we didn't have to do this to buy a boat. We chose to do this education to be safe on the water. So one of my priorities was I do not want to be out there and not know what to do. We're both certified, so if Chris is injured, I can sail the boat. If I'm injured, Chris can sail the boat. It was important to us to have enough education to be safe on the water. So you can attain the sailing life without as much education as we did, but we chose to do over education to, 1, get proper insurance and a lower price insurance, and 2, to be really safe on the water.
And I mean, like, we're talking a lot about like what we did for specific sailing training, but then the part that a lot of people don't talk about is what you have to do to prepare yourselves personally. And so it's like we had jobs and business back home and families, and we have a house and a car, and you kind of got to go through this thing where if you're gonna, for us, move onto a boat and live on it, you're packing up your life in a very serious way, and it's not something you can do quickly. You have to do things to prepare yourselves, like your things and your family, but you also have to like mentally prepare, because it's a pretty significant life change.
And depending on your situation, you'll have a residence somewhere as well as your residence on the boat. We chose a different option. We did no residence, so our belongings are either with family if they're very dear to us, or they're stored in a storage locker. So we packed up literally our whole house and put it away and came onto the boat. So it's a very, again, you have to mentally prepare for that. What are you taking with you? What are you not taking with you? We have friends that shipped their whole life to the boat. Like they hired a shipping container and shipped it to the boat, and it didn't show up. It got lost, and they had to start over, hoping that they had all these things that they held dear to them, and had to deal with that, like letting go of their things at the boat at the start of their journey. So we learned our lesson from that, and we decided to start fresh on the boat and only take small dear things with us. Yeah.
So I had been doing a lot of the looking at different boats, and we were primarily looking online at the time, because like there's no catamarans where we're from. And we really sort of fell in love with the Bali because of some of the features that they have that are unique. So like we live on a Bali Catspace. So like all the Balis, it has a big fold up garage door on the back. And it's got a fly bridge, even though it's a smaller catamaran. And we love that there's no trampoline. It's got outdoor living space up front, and like even things like the layouts of the cabins just feel more spacious and modern than what we see on other brands and models out there. And so it really felt like our boat is 40 feet, or it's just over 12 meters. But we really feel like we're on a 50-foot boat. Like it just feels like it has a lot more living space than what you would get for like a similar price point with another brand.
They've used the space really well. So what Chris is talking about, from like just over 40 feet to like a 50 or 60-foot boat, the space is really well used. So like things like the kitchen is really well set up. It's thought through from someone that's actually cooking. The kitchen is properly placed, the dining room's properly placed, and they've thought it through from a luxury perspective. There is a cupboard where you think there should be a cupboard. There's a storage locker where you think there should be a storage locker. So it's really, for us, what stood out was the little attention to detail that they navigated really well. So yeah, we arrived a few days early. So we flew from Canada to France, and of course we arrived a few days early to get a few supplies like towels and linens and those things that you need for day one. And we arrived to the boat, and it was kind of like a big breath of relief, like a big sigh of relief, like it's finally real, because we had been planning for 10 years from the start of we're going to live aboard a sailboat to stepping on board was a 10-year process. So it was kind of this like, it's finally real, it's finally real. So that was, the first kind of moments.
I remember it was really a surreal experience, because when we picked up our boat, it was a brand new vessel, and I don't know, there's something magical about being on like a brand new boat where you're like it had like a new car smell to it, and you remember like the cushions weren't out, and you just like you go up to the helm and you're like nobody's used this thing yet, and it's just sort of this like kind of magical, like you get to be the first ones to take this little boat out, and it was really neat.
So initially we had thought used would be the route for us, but we knew we wanted the owner's version. So having that larger owner's cabin was crucial for us. And we went back and forth. We had lots of discussion around this because we went, okay, well, we can get a cheaper vessel at a 4 cabin because there's lots of charter boats coming out of that secondhand market. But we ultimately decided that we were living on the boat full time, and having that full owner's side was going to be the difference of us having that feel of this is our home experience, as well as having the benefits of having the washing machine on board. A 4 cabin, there's not the option for that. It doesn't, you'd have to fit it in somewhere. So I think the option to buy new was clear as we started going through what were the things we absolutely must have for the long-term living on the boat.
Yeah, because we'd been looking at the used market for probably a couple years before deciding to purchase new, and I think what we were finding was, exactly what we wanted just wasn't on the used market. Like they almost never came up, or if they did, they sold pretty quickly. And so I think for us, the decision to go new, even though it was maybe a little bit more money, it meant we could get exactly the boat that we wanted, and we wanted that extra comfort and those creature comforts that maybe we weren't going to get, or we would have had to pay for upgrades if we had gone with a used vessel.
Something else that's important doing it from new is you get to choose your color palette. So that was really lovely because it's really your preference at that point. Do you love green? Do you love blue? Do you want more of a taupe look? So that was really nice to be able to, from the start, have the color palette we want, and we did the elegance package, so proper lighting features and things that you are used to at home, but might not be standard on all the vessels that are out there on a second-hand option. So it was lovely to be able to go through each line item and go, no, I really want a water maker, or no, I do want the dishwasher, after much discussion of, do you want a dishwasher on a boat or not? And you go, no, that sounds lovely. Let's do that. And so it was one of those kind of like a shopping list. You went through the
Sure.
thing, and it was really enjoyable to be able to have those discussions and go, no, this is the right choice for us. So. We love the open space, especially in this summer. The doors open 90% of the time. We close it for bugs. The only time we ever close it is if there's bugs out. And even then we have navigation for that. We close the cabins off and we let the air be open. But yeah, it's beautiful in the morning to get the nice crisp air. In the Mediterranean it was hot, humid air, but it's nice to wake up and have that kind of feeling around you. But most of the time the door's open and the windows are open and the front hatch is open.
And I love when we've been going down, we've been in the Mediterranean for the last 10 months. And, this summer we summered on the western coast of Italy. So we were going to some pretty amazing anchorages. And I'm thinking about like Capri and Portofino and, the Amalfi Coast. The boating culture out there is amazing because there'll be like 100 boats all around you and everybody comes out to have a good time and, spend the day on the water. And when you get to you roll up the back door and you open the windows and it just feels like it just gives off really good energy back there. You get some music going and it's just I like it a lot because you feel like you're part of a special culture, in that particular part of the world at least.
Something that I love about being on a catamaran is you're up above the water. So you're constantly engaging with whatever is around you. So it's like, oh, there's some boats anchored and you're kind of part of that community just instantly by being up and out. So people wave, or the fishermen come by and they want to sell you fish, and you're just you're constantly engaging with what's going on. And so I love that about being on a catamaran because you're just up high and you're really part of what's going on. You're not missing what's going on beside you.
Yeah. This is pretty much what he looks like every day. Gidget loves it on the boat. We don't. A lot of people put like a netting on around the perimeter of their boats, their catamarans.
On the lifelines, they do a little netting system. We chose not to do this because. Obviously, it has a restriction of view, so you can't see it through it as well. But also, Gidget doesn't need it. Maybe bigger dogs need it because they might be going back and forth, but he just runs around the deck like he owns the place anyways. So yeah.
Yeah, he's got crazy energy. We keep him on his leash when we're underway. And he did get seasick once in rough weather. Mr. Gidget got a little seasick. Yeah, poor guy. Yeah,
but most of the time under rough weather, he just wants to be close to us. So he'll just come and we'll protect him from the rough weather. And so he runs around the deck. Once we get up in the morning, he does his like safety patrol. He goes out and he does all 4 corners of the boat, and then he can do his business. Yeah. And then he just basically protects the boat all day. So if there's a boat coming by, he'll bark at the fisherman or a bird. We have very little bird problems on the boat because we have Mr. Gidget with us.
Yeah. I think initially we were a little nervous, like, what if he doesn't like it, or what if he doesn't feel good? And then he was like day one, he was super comfortable on the boat, and probably more so because he was used to coming to an office with us every day and sitting around in an unstimulated environment with white walls, and now he can be sort of free around the deck. So I think he's very happy.
Something that Mr. Gidget does very well is travel with us. So we had made a concerted effort to bring him everywhere we went from his time he was a puppy. So he knows if his harness is out or his little travel house, he's coming with us. So he was a little uneasy the day we left because he could tell we were packing things up for real. And he was kind of like, am I staying home with Grandma and Grandpa or am I coming with you? And as soon as he saw the travel case go in the car, he's like, oh, I'm going. This is great. And then it was a 2-day travel. So we got to France early. We spent a couple nights in a hotel and then we got onto the boat and we put his house on the deck of the boat, and he was at home. It was instantaneous on the boat. Yeah. So
we're having the experience of a lifetime, and I mean, first and foremost, you want to have great pictures and memories, and when you're on the boat, sometimes you're a little bit isolated. We don't have any friends or family out here, and we're restricted to meeting new people everywhere we go on our travels. But those aren't the same kind of deep relationships that we have with friends and family back home. So it became a way to sort of communicate what we're doing and what we're up to, and show people proof of life. We're still out here, we're still safe. But then I think we've been really pleasantly surprised because we started posting and sharing our adventures. And the community on the internet and on YouTube in particular has been just amazing. Even though we're out there and we're by ourselves sometimes, it feels like there's this big world of people who are kind of like cheering us on and encouraging the adventure and stuff. So it's been a really pleasant part of the experience for us.
Initially, we were thinking of doing it as like a video blog of our travels. We said, well, okay, we're going to go do this called Grand Voyage of the World. We want to have proof of this and something to recall and remember by. And so initially it was like a video diary or blog. Then we started thinking about it a little deeper and doing things like our boat tours that we've done in the past to help other boaters kind of navigate things that we didn't have access to. So when we were looking, we didn't have a video tour of all the pieces of our boat. And so doing those things, we wanted to kind of give back to the community a little bit and do this is what it is. Ask us questions. And we've had a great response by that. Yeah. We have boaters reaching out to us all the time in our private messages, and we're happy to respond and message back of the questions and answers.
I think what you really need is you need a bit of a thought out plan. And for us, it was a 10-year plan, but I think primarily because we had to get our businesses and our finances and things like that in order. People who are a little bit further in life, it could be maybe a shorter plan, but you need to sit down and start writing out, this is what needs to happen, and break it down over whatever, a period of months or a period of years, depending on your timeline. You just got to start. Like every year for us, we would sit down and it'd be like, okay, we're in year 4 of our plan, and this year we need to do this with our courses and this with our finances and this with our business. And it was kind of this like, you know, step by step. Every year you pick just a little piece.
One of our teachers called it cutting the dock lines. And he said a lot of people don't cut the dock lines. They always think about it. They want to do it. They have a passion for it. And I think part of our like secret to cutting the dock lines was making sure we were prepared. So however that process looks for you. Oh, I don't know how to sail. Okay, well, go learn how to sail. Well, what does that mean? Kind of cut it into smaller chunks so that you can attain the goal. So a lot of people have the dream to own a sailboat, but they never get to cut the dock lines because they don't know how to make that from zero to being on a boat. Cut it into smaller pieces and make a plan.
Mr. Gidget, is there anything you would like to share? I think especially being from Calgary, where there's no big bodies of water, a lot of our friends and family didn't really understand like where we were going and the type of boat we were going to be on, or they didn't understand how big it would be. Yep. or feel. Yep. And it was this once our friends and family started coming out and seeing like, oh, you know, your boat's kind of like a little apartment on the water. Like this is actually really, really nice and comfortable. Yeah. And so they were really surprised with that. Yeah.
I think the biggest misconception that our friends and family have at home, again, because they're not boaters, we don't have a coastline, is how fast we can travel.
Right.
So we'd have friends that would say like, so we'd be in France to start, and they'd be like, oh, we're going to do a quick trip to Santorini. Come join us. And it'd be in like a week. And we're like, we can't get there that fast. But once they started coming on board, they started realizing how fast we could do it. Like I remember your dad was talking about how much of the Italian coast we could get done in their 2 weeks with us. And so we started talking about like how fast the boat goes and what we can reasonably do in a day for comfort and enjoyability for a vacation. And he realized how quickly that we weren't going to go from Milan to Rome in a day like a cruise ship. We're going to go a little slower, but we're going to see all this other beautiful little cities and the culture that you don't get to see on a big cruise ship.
One of my favorite misconceptions that comes up very often, like when we're sailing into different cities, is, I mean, one, people assume that we're on a charter. Like they never assume that we own the boat. They always assume that, you know, we've rented it for the week or something like that. But people always ask us like, oh, how long is your vacation for? Or, how long are you in Italy? When do you go back home to Canada? And, you know, you got to kind of like, no, you know, we live on the boat now, and, you know, we're not going home anytime soon. And I think it's just kind of a fun one that like, no, this is where we are.
Perfect.
Okay.
So
Thanks,
exciting.
Carol. So much fun. So easy.